It's a warm hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sim Racing Collective GT3 Series here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. I'm going to be Zach Sweeney in the commentary booth, talking you through all the action. And tonight we are in Italy. We are at Misano, a fantastic venue to host the second round of the second season of the PC ACC Championship. Last time out at Spain, at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, we saw some fantastic racing, and what a way to get the season underway. Derek Sun took the win ahead of Jack Southwood and Samuel Tremondley, completing your podium. The Honda NSX seemed to be the one in dominant force out there on our field. However, we come to Misano, our first session, in some treacherous conditions, it must be said. Throughout the entirety of last season, I cannot remember a single session, not even a qualifying session, that took a little bit of a slippery surface to this track. But we're here for round number 2 of season 2, and qualifying is going to be wet. We're not too sure about how it's going to be during the race, but we can definitely tell that this one is going to be a little bit soaky and slippery, something that the drivers are definitely going to have to adapt to over the course of this session. Yeah, well, as we go in towards the race as well, that also is going to be a bit of a shift. What compromises do you take? Is it going to be a dry race? Because if it is, it makes qualifying a whole different ordeal. It makes it just that little bit more complicated to sort of try and tame, because, well, if you put on a wet setup for qualifying, you go into the race and your ride height is way too high, your tire temperatures are a little bit too high or low with it, whichever way you want to swing, your suspension set up differently, your aero set up a bit too high, and then you're going to be a sitting duck when it comes to the race. Do you set yourself up more so for the race? Do you even know what the track's going to be like over the course of the race? We do not know. And again, as soon as the track becomes wet, it does become an entire sort of mood of uncertainty across the entire field. But that's regardless, that's besides the point. We have to focus on qualifying. You have to play with the track that you're given and try and do your absolute best. Riding on board with the Honda NSX of Samuel Tremondley, as we said, finishing P3 last time out at the Spanish circuit in Barcelona. Coming into turn 1 here at Misano, we'll ride on board for the entire lap. A quick right-left chicane. You have to be heavy on the brakes. You can use a lot of those cut curbs on the inside, and again for this left, you're just trying to set yourself up as best as you possibly can. Going through this next right-hander, nearly flat in the dry, not quite sure about how it's going to be in the wet. Coming in towards turn 4 again, braking just at the start of the Astro, heading in towards this right, and again you've got to set yourself up well for this right-hander, because you've got to keep it all the way to the right-hand side of the circuit to set yourself up for this left-hander that leads you onto the back straight. A little bit twitchy from the Honda NSX, the 111 car, as he heads down the back straight and now in towards the prime overtaking opportunity of the circuit, in towards this hairpin, braking just at the 100 board, very heavy on the anchors. Got to set yourself up for a nice apex though, because the track does widen out on the exit. Got to bring it back to the left hand side to set yourself up for this very awkward double apex right-hander. You head in, you've got to brake in a straight line, aim yourself for the next part, because again you've got a pretty long flat out section. Late apex, you can see from Tremondley as he tries to battle with the car, using the brake bias to really manipulate the car, use the weight shift as well to rotate his rear end, because you've got to. The front end has no grip. In towards this nearly flat out right-hander, I think so even more in the wet. Complete commitment there from Tremondley, and then in towards the most tricky corner on the circuit. Heading into this final sector, you can see he gets it all sorts of wrong, very wide going in, and in the race that again is going to be proven to be Very tricky corner in towards the third to last corner now. This again, this loops back on you right-hander, and you have to bring it back to the right-hand side of the circuit for the penultimate corner, which again is nearly flat in the dry. Not so much sure about the wet, of course, because it's new to me, it's new to the drivers. Into the final corner is a crucial one, because you do need to get the run down the pit straight. Is it going to be a decent lap for Chimondley? We don't know. We'll have to see what the benchmark is going to be. A big mistake, and definitely a lot more time on the board. A 48.5, though, understandably, I think, invalidated is the word I'm looking for, invalidated on that last lap. But yeah, the double right-hand complex that we saw into the final sector is so tricky, because you're braking and turning at the same time. And of course, when you do that, the car just doesn't really know what to do at all. It's confused, because you're putting the tires under load while also putting them under a load of having to stop the car as well. And that they just become overwhelmed. And when they become overwhelmed, they're not working at their full capacity. They begin to lock, the rears lock, and then boom, you're sliding, you're twitching, this, that, and the other. And yeah, Misano's a tricky circuit, to say the least. It's not one we often see too much of, particularly in the world of sim racing. But when you come onto ACC, it really is a gem. It's a hidden gem, I think, because Misano, one of my favourite circuits, for sure, over the course of the GT3 calendar. At the moment, we've got Sir Smokey leading the way, 1.1 seconds clear of Jack Southfield in second place, with Nico Veldman there in third. But yeah, when it's wet, it really is going to spice things up for sure. In terms of the grid order, because if you're good in the dry, that doesn't necessarily transfer into being good in the wet. If you're good in the wet, it usually means you're quite balanced at both, because a lot of the skills you can use to succeed in the wet transfer over to the dry and make you a better dry driver. Whereas if you're quick in the dry, nothing really transfers from dry to wet, because in the dry you can be a lot more committed, you can chuck it in, this, that, and the other. But yeah, being quick in the wet, being consistent in the wet, again, is a whole another kettle of fish. And as we're going to see, I'm sure, with a pretty shaken up field at the moment. Oh, Nico Veldman getting it all sorts wrong. A nice little Tokyo drift, though. He's kept it held, using the full extent of the circuit to do so. But into the Curva del Caro, he's kept it pointing the right way, which is fair enough. If he can do that in the race, well, we'll have to wait and see. Chimondley, though, 0.2 of a second just in behind Sir Smokey. He's putting a slightly better second lap. And of course, as this session progresses, I'm not sure if it's still raining, if it's still getting worse, but if the track's stagnant over the course of this session, the more laps they do, the more into a rhythm they get, the quicker they get. The first couple of laps, really just sight is, oh my word, that's very sideways from Chimondley. He's just going to park it to the inside of the circuit and escape back, I think. But once you get into a rhythm, once you build up some confidence, once the track begins to rubber in just a little bit, you can use those wet tyres to really push and really put in some good lap times for sure. The Team Shazoo driver of Chavinsky at the moment limping around in P3. Again, a Honda NSX really is the car setting the standard over this season, which I don't know. I've not seen so much of it. Of course, we have got a Mercedes on pole, but even last time out at Catalunya, it was a Honda, fairly Honda-dominated sort of front of the field. Again, as the season develops, we go to a variety of circuits. As I say, we're here at Misano. We took round one at Barcelona. We go to Brands Hatch in a week's time, then Monza, Indianapolis, and Spa to round off our 6-race calendar here for season 2 of the TSRC GT3 PC ACC. Brought to you, of course, by the JP Broadcasting, who definitely do deliver some top quality broadcasts. We have a number of events throughout the week. I think we have got some radicals tonight on a Thursday. We go to a number of different events throughout the week. I think we've almost got a stream every day of the week. I think we've got multiple streams for every day of the week, as is the demand for such a high quality broadcast company. This is Chavinsky, just proving again how treacherous this corner can be. Again, just looping it around. It's one of those you either get completely right, or one of those that you have to completely back out of. And take with such caution, because it's one of those because you have to be so on the limit to get it right, that if you're even slightly under the limit, it's not. I honestly don't quite know how to explain it without like completely making a muppet of myself. But you either have to be completely committed or just backing out of it and taking complete caution. Because if you're like, okay, I'm going to really push into it, but like kind of back out, you're just going to spin. Because the car is just confused. It's like, wait, you're asking so much of me, but you're also asking me to not spin. And yeah, it is a really confusing ordeal. It's one of those corners that really can catch you out if you're not careful. I'll stop waffling on about that corner because I could go on for days for it. This is Jack Southfield at the moment, Team TSRC representing the league itself. and doing a really, really good job there up in P5. So too is Marston for the highest placed AM, only 1.5 seconds clear of the overall pole position. And of course, if you are joining us in the YouTube chat over on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel, do let us know who you're cheering for, who's your fan, what your predictions are for this race, what you're thinking about for the rest of this season. It'd be great to hear from you. That's Jack Southfield going right into the back of that BMW, which is questionable. I'm not sure either of them are going to be too happy about that. But, yeah, no, interesting. And getting told that Alvaro should have a quali ban, so maybe a little bit of a naughty from Alvaro. Getting told no snitching in the YouTube chat. Ooh, snitches get stitches, you know what they say. The Dutchman, though, of Nico Veldman, team WRT, at the moment P8, 1.6 seconds off the pole timer, Sir Smokey. But as we say, I'm cheering for the winner, whoever that may be. Very true, very true. James Parfitt, ladies and gents, a glory hunter. You can definitely tell he supports Man City. But again, that's a discussion for another day. Nico Veldman through the final corner. P8 as it stands. Can he improve upon his time? Again, in the rain, it's so easy to improve upon your time by a decent margin, and straight away, pole by 1.2 seconds, goes about 2.5 seconds clear of his previous best time to take provisional pole. Still 5 minutes left to go in the session. Doing a fantastic job, though, does the Dutchman. And again, it just goes to show how quick it can ebb and flow in the wet. You have to get it so clinically precise. I'm a Spurs fan, trust me, no glory hunting. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Sorry. I'll shush now. Marston for an AM up into P2 overall. Pole, of course, for the AMs. They are going to be on one grid, but they are two separate championships. Very well done. Alvaro up into P2 as well. I think the track really is drastically improving, and it comes down to timing. You want to be able to set your lap at the last available opportunity, because then you get the best track possible. Because the track's at its best, even if it's only by a few seconds, it can make a difference. In conditions like these, the grip is changing lap by lap, even corner by corner, in some sense. You know, if you're on a track, I think we've got, I'm not entirely sure how many cars we have actually got for this race, but it's at least 23, because you can see Chinecki just at the bottom in 23rd. So I think we've got upwards, I think, of the mid-20s, maybe towards the low 30s for this race. You've got 30 cars on track. That's going to be clearing off some standing water off the racing line. And again, over the course of the session, those 30 cars are going to be clearing it out the way. These wet tyres in Formula 1, close to 80 litres per litre per tyre. 80 litres per second per tyre. In the GTs, can't be far off that, because your road car is 30 litres if you've got some decent tyres. So for GT3s, it must be sort of 50-60 litres per second per tyre for these wet compounds, and that is a lot of displacement for the tread to sort of move it out of the way. So, you know, you're going to move some standing water off the circuit, and you think that's, you know, multiplied by 30 cars. It's quite a lot. So drastically improvement, exponentially improving throughout the session. Only 3 minutes left to go. It is, at the minute, Jack Southfield leading the way, I'm pretty sure. Alex Skinner, Team Ricky Monsters in the Lexus. P26 as it stands, 5.7 seconds off the overall pole position time, and, well, 5.7 seconds-ish, I think he's actually, about 4.7 seconds, I think he is off the overall AM championship, not championship, grid. Let's put it that way. At the moment, P26 across the line hasn't been able to improve. P24, not bad. 1 second improvement on his previous lap, so definitely doing a pretty good job. But again, the wet weather, variable conditions are going to spice things up. Derek Sun, the pole, who took the win last time out in Barcelona, P31, gets a steady lap time and really making a fool of himself through there, sideways, almost spinning it round. Managed to hold it pointing the right way, though that is not going to be the quickest line around at that corner throughout this qualifying session, and definitely not throughout this race. He's going to have, I think, 1, maybe 2 more attempts at it. 144 lap times we're doing. I think it's going to be close for him to get 2 more attempts. He's leaving it right to the death of it. He's going to put a lot of pressure on that final lap, and I think for Derek Sun, just take it easy. Just take this lap easy, get inside the top 10, work from that, because you've not done yourself any favours at all. But again, we're going to have to wait and see, because still these results are provisional. It might be a 4/10 gap at the front between Jack Southfield and Hamling. But that can come down. We saw just how quick the track can change with Veldman getting 2 seconds quicker on his previous best at the, you know, the click of your fingers, really. 1 minute 30 left to go. This is going to be Sir Smoggy's final lap in the session. He's going to pull off to the right-hand side and escape back to the pit lane. He's obviously happy with his 1:43.8. Good enough for provisional pole at the moment. But again, is that going to stand? Everyone around him is going to get a 1 minute 15 second better track come the checkered flag, which could be the difference, could separate a couple of tenths of a second. You might not think it, but it will. Victor Chavinsky, the team at Shazoo GT Omega, Honda NSX, at the moment P14, in towards the hairpin at the end of the back straight. Once more, 2.9 seconds off overall pole. P14 overall at the moment. To get inside the top 10 only needs about half a second, so definitely on. Just needs to be committed, needs to be brave, needs to be smooth mainly. That is the key in the wet, is to be smooth. You know, you see these drivers, they look so quick, they're hacking and sawing at the steering wheel, left, right, making all these corrections, looking so cool, really impressing all the ladies on the side of the track. But they're about a second a lap off, because of the overcorrections, because the car's sliding, because it's not running at its optimal grip levels. If you go into a corner, brake nice and early, trail brake in, get on the power smoothly, do one smooth motion, you are going to gain lap time. Even if it doesn't look quick, it is quick. Especially on a sim, I think, like ACC, you do need to have that smoothness about you. You need to go into the corner with prowess and with elegance, not, you know, taking 20 different jabs at the steering wheel to make it work. Anyway, 4 seconds left of qualifying. The checkered flag will be waved to signal the end of qualifying. This is going to be Chavinsky's final lap. We'll have to see what the final running order is going to be. Is Chavinsky going to be able to improve upon his lap time? A number of cars in the pit lane. Is it an improvement? Yes, it is. Up to P7. Brilliantly done. Nico Veltman up in a second onto the front row by a marginal amount only. What is that? 35 thousandths of a second ahead of Jack Southfield, though it is, I believe, Sir Smoggy that took pole position. We'll have to take a look at the final running order as soon as we can get them. This is Thomas Zatan. Again, the pole in the McLaren, representing some good old British engineering. Though I say that. We've got Jackson up there in a McLaren. I'm not sure if there's anyone else higher up, but we'll have to have a look at the manufacturers. That's our 15-minute qualifying session done and dusted, though in the books. We'll have a 40-minute race just after this. And of course, that is, fingers crossed, going to be one that is interesting. Because if this qualifying session's anything to go by, if it's wet weather, ooh, interesting, definitely interesting. If it's dry, we'll have to wait and see. Good thing, though, of course, for our gingers on the grid, most notably. Let me pull up his name. Here he is. We've got Jack Southfield, the man currently in third place, the poor ginger. If he's exposed to too much sun, he will burn, even in ACC. I know it's bizarre. He needs sort of, you know, 500 FPS. Or SPF, I should say. Bless him. Good thing it is not sunshine and rainbows. Up there in P3 at the moment. Is he going to be able to improve on this final run? Is it going to be pole position? Potentially so. Gave it a good go, but couldn't quite improve there in P3. And as we take a look at the final time and display of the 15-minute session here for qualifying, in Misano, Sir Smoggy takes pole position. 2 purple sectors, a 1:43.885. 4.5 tenths clear of Nico Veltman, who will join him on the front row. Then comes Jack Southfield and Navarro, right, 3 and 4. Gem Howling rounds off the top 5 with Thompson and Chimondley just in behind 6 and 7. Chavinsky rounds off the 4th row of the grid with Volodja and Marston. The AM pole rounds off your top 10. Blankenstein just in behind in P11. Then comes Wright, Jackson, Van Vingen and McClory, your top 15. Troy rounds off the 8th row of the grid with Lawford 17th. Derek Sun only P18 by the end of that session. Then comes Mohammed, Skinner, Jones, Torres, just the next couple of places rounding off P22. We'll take a look just past that. Then comes Brian, Chris Davis, P24, rounds off the 12th row of the grid. Shaneki, Dempsey, Mumada, Tomasi, Blacker, Zatan, your top 30. Then comes Rodriguez, Schlatter, Wells, and Henley there, P34 to round off a very, very large grid. We'll go green for the formation lap in just over a minute. Do not go anywhere. Just going to step away for a second. And then when we go green for the formation lap, we'll bring you back in, give you a quick rundown and see how things go. But the race looking very, very spicy indeed with the, well, the clouds letting loose. 5 seconds then to signal us underway for the formation lap. And if you're on the YouTube chat, do let me know your predictions for this race, your favourites, this, that, and the other. We've still got Smoky fans, Johnny Woo in particular, definitely rooting on the Mercedes, who took pole position, of course. He'll be joined by Nico Veltman on the front row, Jack Southfield and Alvarado, your second row, 3 and 4. A short run, of course, to turn 1. You've only got the pit straight to deal with. Turn 1 is an ample opportunity to get some moves done if you are sort of clever about it. We'll see how the wet track develops, as we say. Over the course of the race, if it sort of increases in intensity, if it decreases, how that's going to spice things up. Are we going to see a change onto dry tyres? I don't think that's going to be the case. The rain is still coming down, and relatively heavily as well. So Smoky perfectly poised in the wet at the moment, though one lap does not tell the full story over the course of 40 minutes. You know, that's a good close to 20 laps. And, you know, that's a long time. That is a lot of laps. There is Nico Veltman getting very eager to the rear end of the Mercedes. So, yeah, he wants to get a move on. They want to get those tyres and brakes up to temperature, particularly in the wet, because it is going to be cold. And you are going to need your brakes and tyres up to temperature. You need those tyres to have a good amount of pressure in them. You need to have them at their absolute optimal, because while they have got a ton of tread on them, the rubber bits that are still going to be in contact with the patch need to be able to resist the lateral G-forces, particularly in these low grip conditions. Same too with the brakes. They are going to be cold, a lot of cold air going in through the ducts to cool them down the straights. But then again, when you slam them on to try and slow you down from 150, 160 miles an hour going in for a hairpin or whatever, you're going to need to trust them to stop. Of course, ABS and traction control in these GT3 cars are going to be in full effect, but you still need to get a stop. You still need to be committed. You still need to trust your machinery, because, yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's the thing carrying you to your victories. You've got to be able to trust it. You've got to have confidence in it, and you've got to work with it, particularly, even in the pretend world, even in the sim racing world. Well, you're not going to die. If you don't trust it, you're not going to win a championship. Only 6 rounds, of course. So you do need to turn up, you do need to deliver week in, week out. Otherwise you do risk falling behind just a little bit. It should be an interesting display, I'm sure, over the course of these next 40 minutes. Interesting format, revised format, of course. We tried and tested a couple over the course of Season 1. We settled on 40 minutes, and of course the 2 25-minute races when we get to Brands Hatch should be very, very interesting. But that's besides the point. We're getting ready here for round number 2 of the Sim Racing Collective GT3 PC Assetto Corsa Competizione Championship. Season number 2, of course, Smoky on pole position. He'll be joined by the Dutchman and Nico Veltman, 4/10 of a second, covering our top 3 in qualifying. So Smoky around the final corner. He controls the pace of the field as they run towards the green lights. As soon as they go out, we'll be underway here in Misano. A slow run, 2x2 lining up. Pole sitter on the right-hand side, waiting for the green flag to signal us underway here in Italy. Still waiting for Sir Smoky. The green flags are waved. We're underway here in Misano, and already side by side for the race lead. Veltman trying to be late on the brakes to the outside line, using the cleaner part of the circuit to catapult himself now to the inside. Also between Jack Southfield and Alvarado, just in behind, 2 wide, 2 rows deep. So Smoky retains the lead for now, but that's not quite going to be the case for Jack Southfield, potentially for the fight for the podium. Nico Veltman forced to concede, though the pink McLaren of Alvarado trying to catapult himself to the outside of the Aston Martin. It will give him the inside for the next left-hander if he's confident, though. Jack Southfield able to just get his nose ahead and consolidate that 3rd place, just in behind, trying to settle themselves in. Bit of a twitch from the Aston Martin could leave him susceptible from Alvarado. Just coming into now the end of the back straight, in towards the hairpin, late on the brakes. Jack Southfield having to defend, though. Does he go in a bit too hot? He might well do. You can see Alvarado trying to get the up and under, just about misses the rear end, though. He might have tanked his momentum and might ruin his chance here for the podium on this opening lap at the very least. In towards the double apex right-hander, and Jack Southfield trying his absolute best to not completely career into the end of Nico Veltman just in front. And do not let the tower fool you. It's not Quinton van Vingeren that leads the way. It's Sir Smoky from Veltman, Southfield, Alvarado, Thompson, your top 5. Then comes Hamling, Chavinsky, Tremontley, Blankensteiner and Volodya, your top 10, to round off the second sector of the lap and into the final third of lap number 1. of this 40-minute race. We cut back to Christopher Marston just on the back of Jackson, hitting into the most treacherous corner on the circuit, nearly eyeing up side by side for this fight for 11th. Now you can see the Aston Martin trying to go the long way around, though gets completely dive bombed by Wright in the background in that Porsche. Very nice livery, it must be said, and also might get mugged by Derek Sun, who's trying to be recovered. Oh my word, contact, because here comes Alex Skinner to the inside. Bit of contact with Christopher Marston, and Sun is trying to negotiate his way through as well. Not the best of qualifying at all. A little bit wide goes the Lexus. That is going to invite Sun through up into now P12 as we round off the first lap here in Misano. It's a brilliant display already of racing, and I cannot wait to see what the rest of this race has in store. Christopher Marston trying to play it a little bit safe. Derek Sun up into P13 now. I stand corrected. Couple of seconds off the back of Wright, the Porsche, just a couple of car lengths in front of him. There was a big train all the way up. It is difficult to overtake in the wet weather. Bit of side-by-side action in the background. There's a spinner there. I'm not entirely sure as to who that is. That might well be. Is that Chimondley? I think it is. Spun round and tumbling his way to the back of the Timon Tower. Also a spinner of the 24 Porsche. So not the cleanest of starts for these guys. The Lexus trying to make it three, or the BMW, sorry, trying to make it three wide going into the next left-hander. Not quite been able to make that one work on this particular occasion. And Honda trying to recover. Back up the inside of the hairpin at the end of the back straight. Back up the inside, trying to regain his composure, trying to be on the fight back. A big gaggle of cars in front of him. It's not all lost if he can just get back into rhythm, knock off that mistake and push forward. Heavy braking zone. Set yourself up for the straight to Samuel Chimondley. P3, as we say, last time out at Barcelona. Definitely one quick enough to maybe mount a championship charge, but days like today where he's had a bit of a spin, definitely not telling of a consistent season. Mistakes happen though, we are all only human. There's Jones, I think, making a move just in front. Here's Chimondley already on the offensive, trying to follow the McLaren through on the Porsche. Brilliantly done. This is the Argentini of Nicolas Alvarado now to the outside of Jack Southfield. They bang wheels as they head in towards T1. The McLaren sent out wide. This could invite Thompson to have a bit of a look for P4. Three-way fight for the final place on the podium. So Smokey and Nico Veldman getting away to the reaches of around about 1.92 seconds. Half a second separate the Audi and the Mercedes. With now just under 4 minutes gone in this race, a tenth of the way through already. It is going to go by quick. Nicolas Alvarado still hammering the pressure on Jack Southfield, though, because of the difficulties, because of the wet weather. There's one line and you do have to stick to it. You pull offline and it's just so much more slippery. No one's been on that part of the circuit. No one's cleared the water off, and your car is just going to not have the grip it needs to get past on a move. You're going to have to brake a lot earlier. You're not going to be able to get on the power as early. You're going to naturally drift out wide and lose some speed, though the car that stays on the dry air racing line going to get all the grip, going to get a normal racing line grip, and that just makes your job so much more difficult, and is allowing Southfield, who might not be as quick as Alvarado, to stay in front, at least for now. 35 minutes left to go. As we say, so Smokey leads Nico Veldman and Jack Southfield, your podium. The Argentini of Alvarado really is putting some pressure on in that 420, very brightly pink McLaren. Heavy on the brakes going into the third last corner, getting a much better drive than the Aston Martin. Battle of the Brits in terms of manufacturers. Aston Martin versus McLaren. Having to go defensive into the final corner. Alvarado looks for the gap, though it's covered off by the Team TSRC driver. Now trying to get the run, practically pushing him through, definitely in the slipstream, and already on the defensive is Southfield, bringing it back to the left-hand side. Is there space on the inside? Alvarado doesn't want it, committing to the outside. How brave can he be on the brakes? Is Southfield going in a bit too hot? No, he nails it to perfection. And then towards turn 2 again, Alvarado trying to get the up and under, trying to get the better drive off the corner to set him up for not the single switchback, not the double switchback, the triple switchback, giving him now the inside for turn number 4. If he can be brave on the brakes, if he can try and get up the inside, it should be his corner, though he gets beached on the curb. That's going to invite Southfield back to the outside, though he's left out to dry there. And now with Thompson putting some pressure on, it has to be said that Alvarado should be clear to get into off into the distance. Out of the corner that leads you onto this back straight, and it does seem that Alvarado has got this place in the bag, though it might be a bit of a send from the Aston Martin, who's very late on the brakes, very committed, using his full ABS, though in my experience that Aston Martin can be a bit of a boat to drive in the wet weather. It's not the most responsive on the front end. It's stable, but it's not responsive. Back to this fight between Ollie Henley and the Bentley of Davis, side by side into the hairpin at a bit of a long moment there. Tried to call it the turn number. We got turn 4, then 5, 6, turn 7. Now into 8 and 9. Ollie Henley pushing Davis through. Sir Smogie's had an off down to P8. What's happened to Sir Smogie? Interesting to find out about that one, because finishing P5 last time out into Lagos at Catalunya, wants to try and work his way forward, but now down to P8. That's of course given Veldman the race lead at the moment. So Smogie still with the fastest lap, and I believe an extra bonus point, maybe an extra bonus point for pole as well. Wow, that is a big turning point in this race for sure. He's still got half an hour to try and recover from it, but only time will tell if he's going to be able to. Has he got the pace? Has Veldman close enough on pace just to, you know, bridge that advantage and stay in front? We'll have to wait and see. Only time will tell, as we say. Now that has really opened up the narrative for this race, because Sir Smogie is going to be on a comeback drive. He's going to try and shrug off his mistakes, and as I said, maybe it was contact. We'll hold our tongue just for a moment, because maybe it was contact with Veldman. Maybe he didn't do it entirely by himself, but it does tell that pole does not definitely translate to a good result in the race, because you can still make mistakes. Things can still happen. Doesn't matter how quick you are. Doesn't matter who you are. The misfortune of sim racing is indiscriminate, and that'll be cut back to this fight between Alex Skinner and Ollie Henley. In towards turn 7, no space on the inside because it's Phil. Bit of a twitch from the Team Rookie Monsters Lexus as he works his way into the hairpin, looping back round. The track opens up, trying to get on the power, but still squeamish at the rear end, using the full advantage of the engine power and the rear wheel drive in that Lexus. Coming out of turn 8 and 9 onto this back straight, you can see Alex Skinner is interested in trying to go for the move, but not quite close enough just yet. Jack Southfield half a second back on Nicolas Alvarado. We'll have to see what the gap between the Argentinian and, of course, the Dutchman of Nico Veldman, who's at the moment leading this race. Could it be eventually a two-horse race between them for the race victory? Only time will tell. I said that quite a lot actually today, but it's true. Only time will tell. We don't know. Time is one of those things that rolls forward, doesn't stop for anyone. And of course, is the only way you're going to find out the answers to all these questions that we definitely do have about this race. The rain really coming down for Jack Southfield. You can see his windscreen wiper working double time in towards turn at number 4. Jack Southfield keeping the Argentinian of Alvarado honest. You're making me check Discord every 20 seconds with all these notifications. Wow. Towards the hairpin, Jack Southfield still there. You can see the Audi of Veldman 2.5 seconds now up the road, and I think Alvarado is bringing Southfield along with him. In tow, of course. Southfield using Alvarado as a reference in the wet, right? It's true in any form of motorsport, karting, sim racing, real life. If you've got a driver in front of you in the wet, you are going to go quicker. Naturally, you are going to go quicker. It doesn't matter, you know, you're going to follow them. You're going to see what they're doing different to you, especially if they've just overtaken you. You're going to go quicker than them because you can see what they do. You can adapt to what they do. If they brake in a bit too early for a corner, you can say, okay, I can brake later. If they get on the power a little bit too late, you can say, okay, I need to get on the power a little bit earlier. This, you know, this, that, and the other. And you really do learn a lot just by sitting behind someone, using them as a reference, because in changeable conditions, every corner is an unknown. Every lap is an unknown. You have to go into a corner blind almost and just wing it, of a sense. And if you've got someone that's already doing that for you in front and you can base your line off them, you are going to close the gap a little bit. And naturally, if you see a driver in front of you that's quicker, you push harder. You want to catch them. That instinct within you forces you to drive quicker. Here's Alex Skinner though. We'll cut back to that in just a moment. Alex Skinner now down to P20. P21 make that as the Lamborghini of Brian, I think, just goes past him in that 777. Alex Skinner must have been involved in an incident because going very, very slowly, even crawling to a halt down the run towards the penultimate corner, letting through a number of drivers, taking to the grass, doing a bit of lawn mowing, and back to the pit lane for him. It's not going to be the best day in the office for him whatsoever. Looking in terms of the AMs, it's Wright that leads the way, ahead of Christopher Marston and Jackson. P3, Blankenstein at P4 there, P13 overall. We're going to see what Cholmondeley can do now. To the inside of Davis, had a bit of a look, but backed out of it, forced to concede. Gets the drive off the corner. You can see the straighter exit using the full amount of grip that he possibly can. Then gets the switcheroo coming down the back straight, side by side with the Bentley. Got the slingshot and should, in theory, be ahead before the corner. Might even be able to take the race line under brakes. You can see there Davis thinking about launching a counter-attack, but it's not going to work. Christopher Marston, P2 in the arms at the moment. Drive-through penalty for him, which is a shame. I'm not entirely sure why, because usually you get drive-throughs for going into the pit lane and speeding. Or that's actually a stop-go 30 seconds, I think. Yeah, drive-through for him. Not entirely sure for why. Track limits, maybe. You do get 3 warnings, and I think after that it is a drive-through. So that might be the case. Nico Veldman leads the way, fastest lap as well for him. So Smokey gets onto the back of the Tiger Racing Mercedes of Volodya. To the inside goes Ollie Headley on Jackson. Side by side as they emerge. Gets pushed out wide though, naturally by the Aston Martin, who's now up into P11. And Marston, I think, yeah, track limits definitely. I do agree with you, Adri Pike. Definitely will be because of track limits, and a shame. Because it's where it's tricky. You do have to sympathise with them. It is going to be tricky to stay on track, especially at a circuit like Misano that invites you to chew off a bit more than you can actually swallow. Because, you know, even that, the anti-cut curbs are inviting. You can still use them, even in the wet. Here as well, there's a bit of runoff through turn 3 that you can use and just get a little bit too eager. And then boom, that's a warning. Boom, that's a warning. Boom, that's a warning. It is easy. Pit window now open though for 15 minutes. This is where drivers are going to have to take their mandatory pit stop. Only fuel, no tyres involved. 25 seconds locked fuel time. So again, it's not a case of what you do in the pit lane. It's when you come into the pit lane, how you get into the pit lane, how late can you be on the brakes, how early can you be deactivating the pit limiter coming out, how much little time can you gain from that. And then of course, just to spice things up just a little bit. Joey McClory, the Irishman, on the back of Jones, who's had a look to Tomasi. Though sandwiched between 2 BMWs is the McLaren. A little bit wide on the exit though goes Tomasi, could invite Jones to come through. The old 2000 McLaren livery. Lovely livery, that West, it really is. Suits the GT3 as well. That's a number of things as well. People put F1 liveries on GT3 cars and the majority of them don't work. But there's some that do stick out, and they do work, and it is great when they do work. Like the AlphaTauri livery on Liam Wilson's DTM car over the course of 2021. That was a good-looking car, and it was an F1 livery that suited GT3. And you see it time and time again in sim racing. You put people like having a Mercedes F1 livery on like an SF2000 or something like that. It just doesn't work. It doesn't look great. But no, that does suit. And liveries definitely do give a car a number of characters. I know if James Parfitt is still watching, he'll recognise the Lotus 79 livery that we saw on a Radical a couple of weeks ago that did work. Because it fit the design of the car, and yeah, it's good when people work, because you can't just whack on any livery. It doesn't matter how good it is, it doesn't fit any car. It's like a lock and a key. But anyway, that's besides the point. I am rambling on just a little bit. Guillaume Hamling, the Lamborghini on the back of Victor Chavinsky, and the Honda just in front, back to the margin of a couple of car lengths, 6.5 tenths of a second, as it says previously updated on the timing tower. Let's see what the Bauer Motorsport car can do versus the Team Shizou. Very prestigious team, I think, Team Shizou, for sort of amateur racing drivers, sort of up-and-coming ones. They do support, particularly I think in the realm of the Formula 1 games. Now obviously branching off into other sims as well, which is good. Got to be versatile. And yeah, they do have a good roster, Team Shizou. Very well accomplished in the realm of sort of amateur league racing. Chavinsky proving that with a P5 at the moment amongst some really, really strong drivers. And of course in tricky conditions as well. It's easier said than done for sure to score a good result. 24 minutes left in this race. Nico Veldman's lead comes down because Nicolas Alvarado 2.3 seconds now. He's chipping away. Jack Southfield dropped back to around 2 seconds behind the 420 McLaren of Nicolas Alvarado. So not quite able to stay on pace. So Smokey managed to get past Volodya, the Estonian. Now about 3 seconds clear of him. The gap comes down even more to another 3 tenths of a second between Alvarado and Veldman. I think Veldman just taking it nice and consistent, whereas Alvarado is like, no, I'm doing this. I'm winning this race. I'm going to try and win this race. You know, got a lot less to lose. And while as Nightbot has very kindly reminded me, we have our very own James Parfitt making it into the final 5 nominations for the VCO Simi Awards for Best Commentator category. He's amongst the likes of Lewis McGlade, Arjuna Kankapati, Luke Crane, and Paul Jeffrey. Some very, very good names in the world of sim racing, a couple of which I have had the pleasure of working with myself. But vote on who you think is best. But if it does that so happen to be James Parfitt, if you think he deserves the VCO Simi Award, if you root for an underdog, definitely click on the link you can see there in the YouTube chat and go give him a vote. Unfortunately, I didn't quite make it to the top 5, but there's always next year. I've got time. Not in a rush. So fingers crossed we can impress over the course of the next year. Yeah, for an award system that has only been out for a couple of years, I think it was back in 2020 that it came out with the Simmies, they've really made a name for themselves as one of the awards that you want to win, whether it's as best photographer, best commentator, best producing company, whatever. It's one that you do wanna sort of be up there with. And there we go, Ivan Tomasi. It's sort of like the sim racing version of the Grammys or whatever. Not quite to that extent, but you know, it's nice to have a VCO Simi. Martin Blankensteiner, the Dane, P12, just in behind the McLaren of Jackson, who's on the fringes of P11, 8 seconds back on Ollie Henley, though. He's got a way to go to be inside the top 10, though it is a fight for second overall in the AMs. This is interesting. They have got the Nissan GTR just behind him. I'm not entirely sure as to who that is, maybe a bit of lap traffic. Martin Blankensteiner in the Mercedes, fighting for second place in the AMs. Take a look as to how that played out last time at Catalonia. Alex Skinner took the win ahead of Paul Jackson and Elias Troyer. So these two just trying to make a name for themselves and establish themselves in the championship. I know Martin Blankensteiner did take pole at Catalonia. Couldn't quite deliver in terms of the race though, so trying to make amends for that now. Guillaume Hamling into the pit lane from 5th on the 6th, sorry, on the grid. Now tumbling down the order to sort of P13, maybe even 14, depending on when he emerges from the pit lane. Martin Blankensteiner though, close, not quite close enough to go for a move. You can see the side exhaust popping and banging. The engine under some extreme load. Must be said, trying to expel all those exhaust gases as quick as possible. Martin Blankensteiner now putting to the left-hand side, the outside of turn 8 and 9. This is brave, bold, and courageous. Is he going to make that one stick? The 303 McLaren of Jackson trying to keep him honest, though. A sluggish exit, maybe. Martin Blankensteiner using the full extent of that outside line to catapult himself now in a position where he is still on the outside, though he is slightly ahead going into the next right-hander, completely flat out and up into P10 overall and up in a second place in this field. Brilliantly done from Martin Blankensteiner, though it could be a counter-attack from Jackson, maybe the GTR spinning off just in the background there. But Jackson really caught off guard. Sailing around the outside goes the Dane. Man, Blankensteiner brilliantly done, showing you how to make the moves done in the wet. Of course, less rubber on the outside means a little bit more grip. Rubber is very slippery when it gets wet. It's very grippy when it's dry, very slippery when it's wet. And if you've got little marbles on the inside of the circuit, take the karting line, go to the outside, swoop around, have that grip, and make the best use of it. Also, keep your minimum speed up as well, because you're going to need that for the exit. That is sort of to what caused the demise of Jackson, because he took the inside line, brilliant, shortest run through, but couldn't quite get on the power as quickly, so it was sort of just like, and then by that time Blankensteiner was already ahead because he kept that minimum speed up. Anyway, we cut back to the front because, well, here's what's going on. These are our top 2 on track. Nico Veldman, the Dutchman, ahead of Nicolas Alvarado, the Argentinian, the P1 overall in this race. Just now ticked off to halfway in, 20 minutes in, 20 to go. Nico Veldman versus Nicolas Alvarado for the win. Nicolas Alvarado setting the purple lap, and you can see Veldman struggling, having to look in his mirrors, and Alvarado just looks so composed, so well poised. Easy for Blankensteiner, says Johnny Woe. He did make it look easy for sure. Alvarado, there's a nice look of that rear end of the 29. You can see Veldman into the pit lane, so Alvarado released. This is crucial now. Veldman needs a good pit stop. Alvarado needs a good in lap. He needs to use this clear air to his full advantage, not get caught up, not get distracted. Go. Try and gain that half a second on track. Then he won't need to do it like when I actually physically do it. He won't need to overtake Nico Veldman. He can just make this time up relative. When he comes into the pit lane, he'll come out ahead. This is crucial now for Alvarado. By himself, head down, push, put some good laps in. But also, we got a fight there for third overall between Jack Southwood and Thompson. The Aston Martin versus the Mercedes, here they are, just in the background of shot. This could be it. Bailey Thompson eyeing up the Team TSRC Aston Martin. Bit of a shaky run through turn 4 for Southfield. Now as they head onto the back straight, the 89 Porsche just moving out of the way. Is Thompson close enough to launch the dive bomb? He definitely looked brave. Is he going to have a look to the left-hand side? Not quite. Follows in tow. Though Southfield susceptible to the up and under. We've seen that time and time again in this race with Alvarado having a couple of looks, though Thompson unsuccessful in this particular attempt. In a bit too shallow for Southfield. Again, could compromise his run versus Bailey Thompson, who gets the better drive off the corner. But is it enough to really get himself up into P2 provisionally, P3 net race position? We'll see. Into the final sector. I think it is going to be a case of Thompson just sitting back because it's so difficult to make a move in this final sector unless you're Blankensteiner, I guess. He's making some moves look quite easy. But not really much you can do into that right-hander, not really much you can do into the penultimate corner, not really much you can do into the final corner. So it is sort of T1, T4, T7, those sorts of areas. Thompson into the pit lane, though, has sort of decided to do the opposite to what Alvarado is doing in order to try and get some clear air. Pulling himself into the pit lane. And now we cut to Nico Veldman trying to cut his way through traffic. This is not good at all for the previous race leader, getting caught up behind the McLaren of Jones. And he's going to be hating this because this is going to be music to the ears of Nicolas Alvarado. Now into the pit lane comes the Argentinian. And it is going to be a race against time because Nico Veldman not even into the final sector yet. And this is to the absolute despair of Nico Veldman, P2 on the grid, and now wide off the circuit. Oh my word, this is going to be detrimental for him into the gravel trap, losing even more time. The gap was only half a second when they came into the pit lane. There's Derek's son in the very darkly coloured, I don't know if that's black or really dark blue. My eyes cannot tell the difference, especially in these wet weather, but that definitely is, I think, sun. Which model it might be, I'm actually not too sure. But either or, we're going to see Alvarado leave the pit lane, presumably ahead of Nico Veldman. We're going to have a look to the left-hand side. He can completely cut the first chicane, and it's going to be a big gap for that pink McLaren. He's not going to have any sight of Nico Veldman, I don't think, at all. He's going to leave the pit lane well clear and wondering what happened to his previous rival. The gap was half a second, as I said, as they came into the pit lane. There's Veldman in the background, still stuck behind the Honda NSX. We're going to take a look as to what the gap is when they do emerge properly in the sector times. Both of them have taken their mandatory pit stop, and Alvarado, with his pace, with his consistency, and with that pit stop, really has set himself up well to take the win here for round 2. But again, never say never. We thought Sir Smokey was going to easily win this race. Nico Veldman looking to the outside of a couple of cars. He's going to have to try it to the outside of the McLaren. That, of course, isn't the McLaren that he wants to be overtaken around the outside, though it's got to do, because he needs to get some clear air. He needs to get back into this fight. He needs to recompose himself and get back into it. He can see his rival just in the distance. It's a couple of seconds up the road, 2.5 seconds to be precise between the pair of them. We'll actually see where the 2.5 seconds as it resets at the timing line. But wow, again, that's what I was saying a little bit earlier on regarding pit strategy. How it can so quickly ebb and flow, because even though you're not actually doing anything strategically, you're not choosing to change tyres, you're not putting in a certain amount of fuel, you're locked at 25 seconds, you're not going to change tyres really. It's just how well you time your pit stop, when you come in, how aggressively you come in, how cautious you are, all this, that and the other, these small things that do add up, and it makes a difference. 2.5 seconds now is the lead for Alvarado, because he stayed out that extra lap. And Veldman, looking back in hindsight, would have said, I could have done another lap. I could have done another lap and just gotten out ahead of the traffic. And now he's 3 seconds back on the race lead. He's lost that track position, which he might have held on to. He might have been able to defend for the final 15 minutes. But we never know. We don't know that. Because Alvarado's been released. Alvarado's got the fastest lap. Alvarado is quick in that McLaren. And Alvarado is 3 seconds clear of his rival. It's going to be tricky for Veldman to win this race. Regardless of which, though, Bailey Thompson still on the back of Jack Southfield. These two emerge from the pit lane, still 6th and 7th on track as they were beforehand. There is the fight for P3 overall, as all the pit stops felt themselves out. We've still got Lodger, Henley and Jackson still to come in. But interesting fight starting to develop between the two of these guys, the Aston Martin versus the Mercedes. Into the right-hander here for turn 8 and 9. And again, they both take relatively shallow lines, but it's going to be a case of who gets on to the power a little bit quicker, who's using a little bit less traction control, who can get their foot to the floor best. And now running down this short run towards the flat-out right-hander at turn 10. following him very closely. Gap does open up to the inside, though he'd be stupid to take that. A little bit too far back for the dive into the third to last corner. Bailey Thompson doing his best. He's got time. He's still got 13.5 minutes to make this move stick. He's not in any rush. He still has the time. But again, it gets to a point where you do have to hurry along a little bit. He's got plenty of time to analyse the opponent. He knows where he's quicker. He knows where he can make that move. He just needs to execute it. The plan should be in place by now. It's just waiting for that opportunity and then pouncing as soon as he can. Through turn one again, a little bit deep for Southfield. Could allow Thompson, if he can poise himself better. You can see the advantage he gets coming through turn two, though has to bog down a little bit. Southfield able to reopen that gap to a couple of car lengths as they run towards turn four, but Thompson definitely the better of the two at, you know, setting himself up through the chicanes. He just needs to keep it on the corner exits. That's going to be the big deciding factor. How close can he keep it on the acceleration zones through turn number 6? And he has got a good run. Is it good enough in the slipstream of the Aston Martin? I think one car length back too many, unless he goes for an almighty send, which he's not going to do. So Thompson's still forced to sit back. Jackson into the pit lane for the provisional leader for the AMP. Of course, he's going to have to relinquish that to the 11 Porsche. Oh no, this is disaster for Thompson. The Aston Martin parked it on the apex, really killed the momentum of Thompson, and he's got a big amount of advantage to close back up versus Jack Southfield. We'll see the gap 1.5 seconds now. And Lasai for Alex Skinner. Unfortunate turn of events for him, for the Team Ricky Monster driver. Really, really is a shame. But Bailey Thompson, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe there's a silver lining to this. Because before, he was quicker. But he got to a point where he was stalemated behind Jack Southfield. Maybe, if he drops back a little bit, catches back up, he can use that hop, skip and a jump, that momentum, to get through on Jack Southfield, rather than getting caught up in the stalemate. So Smokey, back up at a P6, could be P5 by the end of this race. He's still on the back of Victor Chavinsky. Getting told by Alex in the YouTube chat that it's not ideal having to use the drop result this way. It's such as life. And yeah, drop results are there for a reason. In a 6-round season, I think they are important, because it's so easy to miss one race or have a stinker, like Alex Skinner has had, unfortunately, throughout round number 2. But now what's crucial for him is, if he wants to get anywhere in this championship, is to string the next few weeks of results up for him and make sure he doesn't result in an equally worse round. Because to get, you know, this round back or whatever, or to, you know, have another DNF is not going to be ideal at all. So it does force his hand to be extra consistent. There's the dive from the Honda, so Smokey going to follow him through, because he does not want to lose any time versus his rival. Might actually get the better drive to the outside. Had a bit of a look now, pushing the Team Shazoo, Honda and SX through into turn 8 and 9. Is there a gap opening up on the inside? Maybe to the outside. Takes the wide line, cuts back in maybe for a later apex. That Mercedes does look very pointy when it comes off the corner. And of course, it's at the wheel of our pole sitter and previous race leader. Unfortunately, something happened to him. Had a spin, had a crash, whatever it was earlier on that season, back in this position. But as like a true fighter, has fought back, has not given up, and has put himself in the best position possible. So Smokey pushing the limit through the fast double right-hander. Able really to follow Stravinsky as close as possible. They lost the couple of car lengths that he gained back through that sequence of corners, the last couple of corners. Has to make that time back up, of course. I have no doubt so Smokey could at least put an offensive manoeuvre on for P5. Looking back up at our fight for first, though, Nicholas Alvarado 4.1 seconds clear of Nico Veldman. It does seem to be the case that fight is dissipated, and one that unfortunately came to an end. All that sideways for Stravinsky that could allow Sir Smokey to have a look into turn 4. Is he going to have the dive to the inside? You can definitely see, look at the difference in coloration from the racing line of the circuit into turn 4 versus the unused inside. You can see that the racing line is so much more dry versus that inside line. I think it's slightly stopped raining. The wipers are still on, but maybe a little bit of drizzle, and definitely the racing line is the dominant way to go. So it does make making a move just that little bit more difficult. Trying to take the tight line out of turn 7 for Sir Smokey, which is the better way to go. Not able to get on the power as much, but definitely gives him the look to get side by side, which I think is all he needs. As long as he's brave and committed, if he can get on the outside going into turn 8 and 9, he will have the theoretically the better line, because he'll have the better braking zone, but Chavinsky will have the inside line to sort of hold firm with. Again, we'll have to see what happens with this fight. Also, between Jack Southfield and Bailey Thompson, that gap is growing to about 3 seconds, so it seems Thompson's momentum was tanked by that back marker. So unfortunately, the fight for third is again diffusing just a little bit. Riding on board with Chavinsky, having a bit of a look back from the rear wing, and you can definitely see how perilously close Smokey is to the rear end of that Honda. Coming out of the final corner with 8 minutes left to go, only a few more laps, I'd say 6, 7 at max, about 1 minute 40 lap times. We can see there 1 minute 40.8 for Chavinsky, his best lap time, set on the last lap of course as well. So I think the track is improving, so I think we might get maybe 6 more laps in this race. Chris Davis on the back of Christopher Marston, the battle of the Chris between the Bentley and the BMW. Team Ricky Monsters representative, of course. We've got Alex Skinner in the chat. He's going to try and bring a good result home for Team Ricky Monsters, while this is the fight for overall place. And sorry, that is not Christopher Marston, that's McClory. Yeah, he's got to try and bring home a good result for Team Ricky Monsters, and as I say, it's not quite for the overall position that he'd have liked first in an actual championship, because you've got to overtake an AM to do it. But Wright's doing really well. Martin Blankenstein a P2 in the AMs, then comes Jackson, Marston and McClory, the top 5 in the AMs, all adjacent to each other on the timing tower. P11 down to P15 overall. Not good, not bad result at all for the AMs. And there's the move for Smokey. You can see there in the timing tower, ahead now of Victor Chavinsky and up inside the top 5. Unfortunately, did miss that. There it is. Chavinsky maybe making a mistake, maybe Smokey deciding to go for the move, and Jack Southfield setting the fastest lap of this race. Nico Veldman 2.6 seconds back on Alvarado, 1.5 seconds Jack Southfield back on Veldman. Maybe the track is drying to an extent that the Aston Martin is actually quicker. Maybe the McLaren starts to suffer. I know that the McLaren does start to suffer with tyre overheating. That puts a lot of strain on those tyres, and they do overheat quite quickly. Maybe with the track getting drier, and of course with the wet weather, not having the full surface contact patch of the tyre being rubber, not very good at maintaining good tyre temps on a drier surface. I know that's the same universal for all cars as its basic physics, but more so it seems to be the case on the McLaren. We'll have to wait and see Victor Chavinsky diving to the inside of the 777 Lamborghini in order to try and stay as close as he can to Smokey. But the only thing I worry about is there's not enough time left in this race to really see that fight materialise. I think Alvarado, as long as he can keep it clean, should be alright. It's still raining, so maybe it's come down again, because those raindrops definitely weren't there a second ago, so maybe that is going to be a slight for sore rise for Nicholas Alvarado to stay in front. But we'll see. We'll see what the time is now. 3 seconds, so Alvarado gaining about a second and a half actually, and also Southfield losing the time. This is Chris Davis to the outside of McClory, who has to serve a drive through for track limits, so an easy place up for Chris Davis. P15 now overall, 5 minutes left to go for round 2 of the TSRC GT3 PC ACC League. That definitely is a mouthful. A lot of what's the word, acronyms, I think. There's Velogia down to the inside. He's got Ollie Henley for company as they get past the Ferrari, again a lap car. So a fight for P8 here as well. Again, set time and time in. That Tiger livery is beautiful. We saw it throughout the course of last season. Continued into this season. Brilliant. The Estonian definitely does know how to represent the team in the Tiger striped livery car. That's the Mercedes you see just at the bottom of the shot, being under a world of pressure from the Briton of Ollie Henley, setting his best lap time of a 40.7. There is the Estonian Velogia just in front, not getting the best of runs through turn 3. This could eye up the move. Goes defensive to the middle of the circuit. The Aston Martin of Henley forced to go out wide, comes back in though, gets the drive off the corner. They're going to emerge side by side. Has Velogia got the momentum to try and stick his nose back up? The answer to that is no. So Ollie Henley up into P8, brilliantly done. But now Velogia could launch a counter-attack, come back at him if he's brave enough on the dive. Hold your breath. He's late, not quite late enough. Looking up at the front, the timing. Jack Southfield 1.1 back on Nico Veldman. 1.2 now make that, so stagnating a little bit, but we'll see. Vaishlav Volodya. 0.3 back on Ollie Henley. Keeping him honest, as I say, as soon as you're behind a driver that's quicker than you, you naturally go quicker. Here's Southfield. You can see the Audi just in front right there. Gap's closed down a little bit. 3 minutes left to go. 2 laps, I think. Yeah, I think it's going to be 2 laps to the line. The next time by is going to be the final lap. Penultimate lap of this race, then we'll see. My maths might be wrong. I haven't quite got Ewan O'Leary in the commentary booth with me. Ewan O'Leary, of course, has covered this series before. He did the round 2 of the Nürburgring this time last season, covering for me. A fantastic commentator, nonetheless. Is a prime staple of the James Parfitt broadcasting team, and a lot better at quickfire maths than I am. Did get a good grade in my GCSE maths, got a grade A, but not quite good at it mentally. So fingers crossed it's right in terms of this is the penultimate lap of this race. Next time by will be the white flag, and actually no, it wouldn't be the white flag, it's ACC, not iRacing. But to signal the final lap. Jack Southfield though, now really onto the back of Nico Veldman, so this is a fight for second. Alvaro up in front, P1. Though I don't think he served his qualifying ban if he was meant to have one, so it might be a discussion for after this race. Maybe he won't keep that win. We'll find out. But at the moment, this race at face value, he's deserved it completely. His pace has been phenomenal, his consistency phenomenal, his pitch strategy phenomenal. Ticking every box over the course of this race here at Misano. And looks poised to take the win by a fair margin. 14 seconds until it will be the cut-off point for the final lap. We'll see where Alvaro is. Should be the case. Bit of lap traffic getting involved though. Southfield might eye up a move on Veldman because of it. Even in 40-minute sprint races, we're seeing traffic play a factor. Oh, Southfield tapped by the lap traffic. Oh my word, that could spell the end of his P2 challenge. The McLaren diving back up the inside of the final corner. That is really not good though. Veldman caught through, and Southfield with a drive-through. Oh no. Oh man, no. Southfield so unlucky on this final lap. The track really got on worse. The rain picked up towards the end of this race, and that is so unfortunate for Southfield to have that taken away from him because of a lap traffic sending him a little bit too wide. Alvaro now 2.9 seconds. I think he got caught up in the traffic as well. Jack Southfield trying to do his best though to the inside of the Porsche. A bit of a tap sends him round again, and he's not going to be happy at all in that Team TSRC Aston Martin because of the way the end part of this race has gone. He's not going to like that one bit. He's going to be moaning at the lap traffic for not moving out the way, though in GT3 racing the blue flags are more advisory than anything, more a case of don't be stupid rather than off you go sort of thing. You're not you're not mandated to move completely out of the way. Though rules aside, we come back to this fight between Sir Smokey and Victor Chavinsky, the fight for 5th. I thought it was going to be slam dunk for Sir Smokey to get that 5th place, but the Team Shizou Honda NSX has really kept them honest. The 57 now diving to the inside. Oh my god, bit of contact between the pair of them. He goes in way too deep. Now off the track, I think he's going to allow his rival back through because that was an almighty send. Really did lick the stamp first class. That was, unfortunately, it didn't quite arrive on time in terms of the delivery. And that is going to be definitely a 2-star rating, I'm sure, from his career. But here comes Nicolas Alvarado. Only 2 more corners left to negotiate for his first victory of the season here at Misano. He's driven perfectly throughout qualifying and into the race. Made the overtakes, made the strategy, kept it consistent, kept it clean. 1 more corner left to go, and in the dark to the line, the Argentinian, the pink McLaren, comes across the line to take victory here in Italy, here at Misano for round number 2 of the Sim Racing Collective GT3 PC Assetto Corsa Competizione. Season number 2, takes victory ahead of Nico Veldman in P2. Then comes Bailey Thompson ahead of Jack Southfield because of that drive-through penalty that he's been forced to serve. A podium then for Thompson. Sir Smokey P4. Chavinsky will take P6 at the line, and a plus 30 seconds time penalty taken to Southfield because he didn't technically serve that drive-through, which I think is a little bit unfair. Ollie Henley, P8, Gem Hamling, P7. Then comes Volodya Chimondley, your top 10. Wright takes the victory for the AMS. We'll see him across the line as well in this Porsche. James Wright, the number 11. Will lead Martin Blankensteiner, Jackson and Marston. 1, 2, 3 and 4 on the AMs, all adjacent as we say on the timing tower, though James Wright, all eyes on him in terms of the AM, takes his first win of the season as well across the line, takes the checkered flag and wins for the AMs in Misano. What a drive that was. between our two winners. Here comes Martin Blankenstein of the Dane, showing his prowess in terms of the moves that he can do. He's followed very closely by the McLaren of Jackson, the McLaren that he completely mugged off around the outside a little bit earlier on. They come across the line second and third in the AMS, P12 and P13 overall. Christopher Marsden, P14, P4 in the AMS. And now takes the checkered flag. We're waiting for a number of drivers to come across the line. Then we'll run you through the final grid order. And then, of course, wrap up what has been an enthralling couple of about an hour's worth of action overall between the two qualifying and the race. As we say, we do hope you have enjoyed it. If you do leave a like on the stream, subscribe to the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel, and do check in next time out for the next round of Team TSR, the Sim Racing Collective. Watching Jack Southfield so much, just instinctive to say Team TSRC. But yeah, if you do want to get involved, do definitely go sign up. Check out the SimGrid page. There'll be a link for that somewhere, I'm sure. Join the Discord, get involved. Be lovely to see you on track, because it's a great set of lads, great set of drivers. Definitely a fantastic league that will give you some good action if you are interested, if you're any good at ACC. Even if you're not, we've got the pros and the AMs to cater to both. But definitely a good sort of way to showcase what these guys can do here in Misano. We'll take a run through the final grid order then as soon as we can. Returning to garage, as we can see there. Going to the timetables. Nicholas Alvarado then takes his first win of the season, 2 seconds clear of Nico Veldman in P2. Bailey Thompson rounds off the podium with Sir Smoggy P4. A good recovery drive from him and staying consistent 5th and 4th over the course of the 2 races so far this season. Jack Southfield P5 with fastest lap. Arguably, he's going to dispute that. He's not going to be too happy about the penalty that he got at the end. Victor Stravinsky P6 with Guillaume Hamling just in behind. We're going to quickly run through. Guillaume Hamling P6, Ollie Henley P7, Volodja P8, Mondley and Southfield your top 10. Then comes James Wright, the winner for the AMS in P11. Martin Blankenstein just in behind in P12. Then comes Jackson, Marston and Davis, your top 15. Torres P16, Jones P17, Van Vingerden there all the way down in P18 for his Nissan GTR. Then comes Brian P19, Lawford rounds off your top 20 with Tomasi and Dempsey P21 and P22 respectively. Then comes the Irishman in McClory, Schlatter P24, Derek Sun, a very poor race for our round 1 winner, P25 only good enough for him. Blacker P26, Kaneki and P27. Then comes Wells Momada, Troyer your top 30, Zata and P31, Rodriguez, Mohammed and Alex Skinner, those that didn't quite make it to the checkered flag, rounds off the 34 car grid that we did have here today. And a quick roundup of the race then. Wow, it was a pretty good one, it must be said. Very impressed by the quality of driving and the consistency despite the differing conditions over the course of the race. We started off qualifying very damp, a little bit of drizzle. Go into the race, intensified a little bit. Then, of course, as the race progressed, the track dried up a little bit. Then it downpoured again at the end, which again is going to force drivers to adapt. It forced definitely the hands of a lot of drivers to play their cards and to make sure they were still concentrating, easy to get to complacent, especially when the conditions are changing. But for a race that was a first for everyone in this league. Of course, for the PC side of things, it's the first wet session we've had. It's the first full wet evening that we've had for sure. And it's very difficult to go into that as an unknown and drive well. But we saw some great action, great racing despite the difficulties, and some very deserving winners indeed. We look forward to next week at Brands Hatch. Of course, we changed the format just a little bit. We still have the same 15-minute qualifying, but we go to 2 25-minute races, one of which definitely is going to be reverse grid. One I'm very, very looking forward to. We go to the UK and to one of the best and most famous club circuits in the country. I certainly am looking forward to it. My name has been Zach Sweeney, here for the Sim Racing Collective GT3 PC Assetto Corsa Competizione season number 2. What a championship it is proven to be. James Parfitt Broadcasting has brought you the coverage on the YouTube channel, and will continue for the rest of this season. But until then, same time, 8 o'clock British time, in a week's time on Thursday evening. We'll see you then. But until then, take care and bye-bye.